Hey everyone, this is Derek and Ryan from Badgerland Birding. Lately, a bunch of people have been sending us this documentary called Listers, A Glimpse Into Extreme Birdwatching. So we gave it a look. We have 5 things that we really liked about it and 5 things we thought could have been a little bit stronger. Overall, it's about 2 hours long. The premise is that 2 brothers with little birding experience go out to see if they can do a lower 48 big year, trying to find as many birds in the lower 48 United States in a single year. And they're doing it out of a 2010 Kia Sedona. So pretty funny premise. We actually met these guys with a couple of their friends at the Biggest Week. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But we'll start off with the good. So the first thing that we thought about it that was really solid was that there's really great editing in it.
Yeah, the cuts that they did, the amount of footage that they had in there, and then a lot of the graphics they used were really impressive and really helped to keep it entertaining. So there were a lot of parts where there was kind of cutscenes to something else that was almost a little gag or something like that. There was a graph that showed the usage of playback over time, which even as simple as that sounds, it added to the experience. You could see their chart and everything. So the editing was just sublime. I was really impressed with the editing right from the get-go, how it was all stitched together.
Yeah, it almost felt like something that you would see on like a Nat Geo or like, you know, one of those big documentary places, but you can find it right on YouTube. So really accessible too.
You can find it for free too.
Yeah, you can just go there and watch it.
There's no ads on it, so that's nice too.
Might change, but for right now, you know, you can watch it without the ads. Number 2 is that they had really cinematic bird videos. So it kind of cut between some more kind of raw, you know, standard camera stuff, and then it cut to some really cinematic shots.
It's actually kind of almost old-timey looking camera shots, and then you have the slow motion close-up bird videos, which again just add to that appeal of it almost being like a documentary that you see on Discovery Channel. The birds and the cinematic stuff in there is really, really good. There's close-ups. There's all sorts of cool videos of birds in there, which definitely add to it.
Yeah, so overall, like the first 2 things touching on is like the production value bit.
Professionalism in the production is top
yeah, really great.
Sure.
Really fantastic in that. Moving on to number 3, things we really liked about it was that it is very unfiltered. So that kind of goes with one of our cons. There is some language that we'll talk about. It's definitely not something for everybody. You definitely need kind of a certain sense of humor, but it is very much just like, I feel like whatever they were feeling in the moment is what we heard. You know, there is not really a filter on the stuff that they talk about, which makes it feel very authentic and is kind of different from some of that other documentary stuff where it's supposed to be all polished and really like, you know, like, let's not offend anybody. They definitely were not afraid to offend or take shots at anybody or anything.
Well, also, they're going through, you know, sleeping in parking lots. So they're at Cracker Barrels and stuff like that, experiencing whatever's happening in that parking lot between interesting characters going by. At one point, I think there was a drug deal that occurred.
There's a lot of stuff that goes down in parking
It's very
lots,
unfiltered. It's very raw. It's how it happened. It appears to be what is shown, which is definitely a neat look into it, because that happens all the time when you're birding. You get kicked out of places, you get talked to by the cops. There's all sorts of strange things that happen, and it definitely captured that, I'll use the word more authentic experience that you have when you're out birding.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people kind of appreciated that unique, really unfiltered view of just kind of like, that's what I was thinking, but I didn't want to say it. But that guy said it. Like, it kind of,
somebody else fortunately said it. And,
so you
those
really,
moments are set off.
Yeah, you really get that. It's very, very unfiltered. We'll say that. Number 4, there was really good background info. So I felt like anyone coming in who didn't know anything about birding or bird watching, they got a good explanation of like what the Merlin app was, which is a bird, you know, sound ID app, or what eBird is. They did a good job kind of explaining the terminology, and I'm sure people that didn't know a lot about bird watching know a little bit more having watched it and learned some of the terms.
There were some deep dives in there too. Like they talked about this event that happened called Swallowgate, which was a state-specific kind of scandal that involved a questionable report of a bird, and they did a deep dive in it, and almost an investigative journalist type moment, which was pretty funny. And it was really hilarious actually how they interviewed a bunch of people involved, and it was not what I was expecting out of that, but they deep dived on that, and there were other moments like that as well.
Yeah, I liked that they actually got the guy who was involved in the incident to talk, because like I had heard of the incident, but it was interesting to hear his side of the story and then kind of see like the investigative aspect of it.
Yeah, so you end up in these little pockets of different, another one's playback. They talk about playback. So all of the things that you would experience, eBird reviewers too.
Yeah.
Everything you'd experience as a new birder as you kind of transition into intermediate or advanced is kind of covered.
This goes into our number 5 here, which is that it was super relatable. So like as a birder, so many things that they encountered kind of as beginners coming into it, you were just like, oh, absolutely. Or like, yeah, for sure. Like that happened to me. Or even if you're not a birder, you probably could relate to some of the stuff in there too, especially if you're like a van life person, you know, if you're living in your car and be like, yeah, I don't
know how many of you are living in your car right now, but if you are, you can definitely relate. The eBird reviewer one back to that was funny in a relatable way because they got a bird taken away because the eBird reviewer noticed it wasn't what they said it was, and the way they phrased it was funny because they were super mad about it, and they're like, they're probably right. We probably got it wrong and they got it right, and they were still mad, which is definitely relatable.
Yeah, so a lot of relatability. They did some funny stuff, like they built boats to get a better view of a loose bittern. So like that was cool seeing the effort put into that. And props for taking the dedication to go a whole year filming all this stuff, because I think it was last year that they did this, and now it's August. So I mean, a lot of editing time, a lot of dedication to put all that together and really, you know, make it into this thing that people have been enjoying watching and, you know, can see the full experience and all that. And there were some friends of ours in there that it was interesting and cool to see them on screen and hear their experiences with it too. So it was kind of a thing that in the birding community, we'd like heard about it going on and stuff, but it's interesting and cool to see the final product of what it turned into.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of hype about it, as we said, and these are definitely the reasons why. Now, there have been a few critiques of it. There's some things that we noticed that we would have liked to have seen different. Obviously, it's not our movie or our production. It's hard to critique it because it's something that they just made themselves. It seems like such a passion project. It seems like it's not obviously coming from Nat Geo. So, why critique it? I don't even know how to really phrase it, but there's some things that we would have liked to have been a little different in it, or some things that have drawn a little bit of criticism from people in the birding community. Yeah,
or just things that, you know, viewers might not enjoy the most if they're looking for something else. So let's start with number 1 here. We have, it's a little hard to tell, is it genuine? Because I feel like they talk a lot about it being a joke. They're like, you know, as much as this was a joke, you know, I kind of like it, which is kind of the thing too, because it feels like it's almost supposed to be like a mockumentary. It's not really a mockumentary, but it feels like they want to embrace loving birding, but because of the kind of the narrative is set up, they can't fully embrace it. So it's kind of this like, they really want to love birding, but they're kind of like, but we can't because we got to be on the outside.
Yeah, there's a moment where one of them talks about how they realize they're getting too upset about not seeing a new bird recently. And it does kind of feel like they have a foot in both parts of it. And at the end, there's not really a conclusion one way or another, like birding is a goofy thing filled with crazy people, or birding is this great thing that we learned about. It's kind of just set off like that.
I think more it's like listing, because I know they talk about not liking listing.
Competitive.
Yeah, they like birding, but they don't like the competitive aspect, which I totally get, because like doing a big year, it's really easy to get burnt out. So like I feel like if you're kind of going into it just to see what it's like, it's kind of like taking on the final boss in a video game before doing the other levels. Like it kind of starts small, and then the people that do big years, it really ramps up to like they have a really big reason for doing it. You know, it might be like conservation based or like a big goal or kind of a coming of age thing. So I feel like starting out with listing is kind of tough, and it kind of put them in a tough spot to make the documentary, because it's a tough challenge to fully do a full big year. But let's move on to number 2. It's not family friendly, so there's a lot of swearing. There's a lot of drug references. / drug use, possibly. There's discussed.
Shot right after drug use.
Talking about drug use. So it's definitely not something you want to be like, hey, like my 6-year-old, you know, come watch this documentary.
Depends who you are,
so,
I guess.
You know, definitely like parental guidance is advised if you're young, or, you know, it's not something where the humor is going to apply to everyone. We kind of said it's very much like, you know, stoner van life humor.
Stoner van life humor is definitely the genre.
Yeah, if you like that type of humor and that kind of thing, like you will probably enjoy it.
You'll love it.
Yeah, even if you can tolerate it, you'll probably really like it. But if you're someone who's very strict, you know, you don't like swearing, you don't like to hear that stuff, it's probably not the film for you to check out. So just something to note, which that might make people like it even more, or they might, you know, totally want to reject it because of that. So just something to note. Same thing with number 3. is some people said it wasn't very conservation focused. So they kind of talked about bird conservation a little bit, but didn't really get into it. I think that's just not really their intention. But if you come in wanting to see like, oh, it's a bird conservation documentary, or even something that's just like about the specific birds and it's going to give facts about them, it's not really that. It's more a commentary about listing culture and certain people who are doing it.
Yeah, it's not bird focused, honestly, really at all. It's focused on them and the other people that are in the community in the competitive birding listing world. So there are a lot of really nice shots of birds, a tiny bit of information on some of the birds, but it's not a nature documentary, I would say. It's not, we're going to look at this bird, here's some info about it, here's what we observed. It's really not geared toward that at all. So if that's what your expectation is, you're not going to be happy with it.
And for number 4, I put no positives because I felt like a lot of stuff they highlighted in the community was kind of the zany things and kind of looking at it from a like listing is bad perspective. So one thing that I think we learned about the birding community is like people are really nice and really accepting generally. And there's a lot of, heart in the community and people do listing for different things. Like Arjen Dwarshuis did his Global Big Year and also raised a ton of money for conservation. So they kind of, I feel like listing is portrayed as almost a negative. Like people just want to check a bird off, which it can be, but there can also be a lot of good uses for it. I know Greg Miller, when he did his big year, he was kind of getting over like a heartbreak and that helped push him to do that. So like there's a lot of positives and good reasons that people list. And I feel like that wasn't really covered too much. I don't know if that was intentional or if it was kind of like an unintentional thing in it.
Yeah, kind of a deeper conversation on the why people do it, why it might have merit, not just there's a lot of weird people out here. Some of the people interviewed didn't necessarily come off as well as they probably could have or maybe intended to when they gave the interview. So it's hard to say what the initial goal really was because, again, it's hard to tell. We don't know what the filmmakers wanted to portray. They could have just wanted to show the weirdness of birding, but definitely didn't highlight a ton of positives about the community, which I think the community does have a lot of positives.
Yeah, I think being in it, like we've been birding for over 10 years now, we kind of have an idea of like what most people are generally like. It's hard for me to imagine they didn't encounter like a ton of people that were just really helpful. Because like anytime you go out, there's normally someone who's like, hey, what are you looking for? Like, we didn't see a lot of that kind of cordial, stuff. It was always kind of portrayed in a bit of a zany way.
Yeah, I will say some people said that they really were disrespectful. I didn't find that to be the case. I didn't feel offended at all watching it.
I didn't think it was even like a mockumentary.
No,
it was
some
just
people said it was a mockumentary. I didn't
think
think it was a mockumentary either. So I think some people definitely felt a little offended by it. I didn't feel like it was offensive to birders. I felt it was perhaps portraying some people in a light that wasn't entirely positive.
Yeah, and another thing is I feel like they didn't highlight a lot of the beauty of the places they went. They talked a lot about the quirky ones, which is definitely true. Like you end up at the dump. They went
to the dump.
Yeah, they went to a lot of quirky places where you end up going. But like when they were at Rocky Mountain National Park, it wasn't talking about the beauty. Because like we were there and I feel like all we could talk about was like, this place is gorgeous. And I can't believe we're here because of birds. So I feel like we didn't get a lot of that, wow, the experience is, incredible. And this thing is amazing. And like the beauty and it wasn't really that kind of focus on it. Which I feel like could have been intentional or, if you're doing it in a car, I imagine it's a lot less glamorous than kind of just like taking a day trip up there. So you're in the big year setting. So, I mean, it's a little different than, just doing it for fun. But number 5, there were a couple inaccuracies and ethical issues. Really not many. I felt like they did a pretty good job.
Yeah, a lot of the information was good for sure.
Getting their info. One thing that comes to mind, I think it was a player on like their hockey team was complaining that people leave their hummingbird feeders out too long and it causes them not to migrate, which is a myth. So like that's some incorrect information. I mean, it's just a guy in their hockey team talking. So, it's not like an expert. And then one of the pelagic guides was saying he thought people don't normally get seasick. I feel like people get seasick all the time on pelagics. And if one person gets seasick, it kind of triggers, a chain.
On our pelagic that we took in Washington, at least 2 or 3 people were seasick.
Yeah, so it's just like little things like that. Definitely not like a huge thing. But there were some ethical things that kind of as a conservation-minded person, you kind of cringe inside. Like as a casual viewer, you probably is just kind of like part of it. But, using playback at what looked to be Rocky Mountain National Park, definitely illegal, for sure frowned upon, but like talking about trespassing and just kind of the stuff that just kind of made you go like, we definitely shouldn't be promoting that or like showing it, it just kind of makes you cringe a little bit.
Yeah. So overall, what did you think?
Overall, I think it was really entertaining. It's definitely a really unique piece of media. Like, I'm glad that it exists out there. I think you just need to come into it with an open mind and keep some of those things in mind that we talk about, whether you would like watching it or not. So if you haven't seen it, I would encourage you to go check it out.
How you feel about listers is going to really be determined by what you're looking for. If you're looking for a goofy, slapstick, rough around the edges, relatable kind of piece, then I think you're going to be pretty happy with it. But if you're looking for something that's more conservation focused, more bird focused, a little bit cleaner around the edges, then it may not be for you. But I would definitely encourage you to check it out anyway and see what you think, and definitely put your review in the comments below.
Yeah, I'm very curious as to like a non-birder watching it, how you feel about birding afterwards. Like, are you going to be kind of discouraged? Like, that seemed terrible. Those people seem really zany. You're going to be like, that looks really fun. Like, I want to try to do that. Because I feel like after watching it, I wasn't like, I want to go birding. I was kind of like, that looked kind of terrible. Like, there were mosquitoes in the van and, you know, all the kind of stuff. And I compare it to kind of like after watching a movie like The Big Year, that's kind of a more like optimistic adventure. I do feel like, wow, I want to go experience all that cool stuff. You know, it's very kind of opposite ends of the spectrum. But I think it's a really unique take, obviously very well done and well edited. With a lot of interesting takes and information out there that I feel like people that aren't in the birding community probably don't know about, like the Swallowgate thing and like the apps and where we are with technology. So really curious to hear what you guys have to say about it, especially if you're like a non-birder and you watch that, now you're watching this. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And then we also did a little interview with the guys at Biggest Week in American Birding, which is a big festival in Ohio. And so we'll put that on our Badgerland Birding Extras channel with a link in the description for you to check out. And I thought it was interesting none of that made it in, because like I think the birding festivals are really cool and unique and fun. And I do kind of wonder if some of that, if there was like heartwarming stuff, if it kind of didn't make it in there because they were kind of trying to make this a specific vibe. So I'd be curious to see like how much other film they have and what the vibe of it was. But yeah, let us know what you think in the comments below. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Badgerland Birding.